Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to your Gemini season transit update reading. And boy, do we have a Gemini season ahead of us. As always, I'm going to be looking to my right every once in a while just because my notes are on my laptop to the side here. Yay, we've got quite a few things to get through, so we're just going to dive right in. Starting with the moon cycles this Gemini season, we will, of course, be in the mutable moons. So for our first quarter moon, we will have in Virgo at 2 degrees and 22 minutes exactly. So on that first quarter moon, that will happen on the 23rd of May at 7:11 in the morning. And again, the sun and the moon will both be at 2 degrees and 22 minutes Virgo and Gemini and Virgo respectively. So then we'll have our full moon about a week later on the 31st. That'll be the full moon in Sagittarius, stationing exact at 9 degrees Sagittarius, and that will be at 4:45 in the morning Eastern time. All times are Eastern time, by the way, just as an addition there. And just about a week after the full moon, we will have our last quarter moon in Pisces at 17 degrees and 38 minutes. 17, 38, 8. So I'm talking about Gemini season always comes with the vibes here, okay? And that'll be at 6 in the morning again on June 8th. And then for our new moon, that will station exact on June 14th at 10:54 p.m. at 24 degrees and 3 minutes in Gemini. And before we get into Gemini season itself, I do want to start a couple days before while the sun is still in Taurus because we will have Mercury, which is in its domicile in Gemini, move into Gemini in the early hours of the 17th of May. And then just from the late hours of the 17th into the early hours of the 18th of May, it'll station on top of Uranus, which for the first time in our lifetimes, it will be in Gemini during Gemini season. So this will be the first of about 8 Gemini seasons where we will have Uranus in Gemini. And again, just before Gemini season starts, we will have Mercury in its domicile directly conjoining Uranus. Uranus is the planet of unpredictability. It's about movement. It's about, again, just spontaneity and things turning on its head, but in a way that is not only artistic, because, Uranus is eclectic in that artistic sense, but in a way that's unexpected, but usually even in the tumult and even in the chaos that can kick up from the spontaneous unexpectedness of what does occur, especially while it's in Gemini, because Gemini as a sign is spontaneous and unexpected, and it likes to kind of flip things on its head just because it gets a little bored sometimes and it likes to shake things up. So with this combination of Uranus, which is all about the spontaneity and the spontaneity and the unexpected, and Gemini, which is again a similar energy there, we can expect this first Gemini season to not only be spontaneous and unexpected, but very fast paced. And with Mercury making that conjunction with Uranus in its domicile, while again, it's the first time Uranus is in Gemini during a Gemini season, expect the unexpected. Expect the unexpected, especially because Gemini and Mercury together are both trickster energies. Mercury is Hermes. Hermes is not only the messenger of the god, he's also a trickster. Same thing with Loki. It's that same energy of trickster energy. Uranus itself is a trickster energy. So not only just within your being, but in the energies you interact with, and expect yourself as well to involve yourself in that energy of like the trickster sphere. Even if you don't mean to be, there is likely going to be quite a few times during this Gemini season and then throughout the next 8 years where you will find yourself in the position to be either taking advice from the trickster spirits or becoming the trickster spirit yourself. And just as a personal note, in the last couple months, so I would say about the last 6 or 7 months, Spirit's been nudging me to not only learn more about the trickster energies, but reflect on the ways that I was unconsciously adopting those trickster energies in my own life and with other people without even realizing I was doing it. But it was in that reflection that the reflection was preparation in itself for what to expect, not only from myself and not only from others in my environment, but just the energy in general as Uranus transits Gemini. And again, on that same day where Mercury does come together with Uranus just before the sun moves into Gemini, A, the sun will be at 27 degrees Taurus, and 27 is a Gemini degree. And B, it's almost the way I understand it is that with Mercury, which rules over our intellect, among other things, also communication, but especially the way our minds work and our minds function and make sense of the world around us and our inner workings as well. Mercury coming together with Uranus, it's almost like a mental preparation for Gemini season. And especially because once we enter into Gemini season, after a day or two, the sun will conjoin Uranus directly on top of it. So it's almost like your mind is preparing for what the sun will illuminate with Uranus coming together with these different planets. And then to go along with almost that transitory, transitionary energy, on the 18th, still before the sun moves into Gemini, we'll also have Mars move into Taurus. So it's this planet of action that has been moving very fast paced throughout Taurus season as it moved through Aries. Just before Gemini season, Mars is going to kind of take a step back and slow down a little bit. So it's almost going to be this push pull dynamic of Mars transiting Taurus, where it doesn't really love to be because, again, it's more slow moving, it's more grounded, where Mars likes to be fast paced and action oriented. It's going to kind of force us to take a step back, which is good in terms of Mercury moving through Gemini, because if we are not moving so quickly, it gives our minds time to strategize and figure things out intellectually. So I think this is a good dynamic again, especially with all of the Gemini energy we'll be moving with and Cancer energy as well, because Cancer is going to play a big role during this Gemini season too. So in the later hours on the 18th, both Venus and the moon moved into Cancer within 45 minutes of one another. Venus first at 9:05 p.m. and then the moon at 9:46 p.m. Eastern time. So about an hour or so before that, the moon and Venus will conjoin one another and then continue that conjunction from 29 degrees into the 0 degrees of Cancer before the moon kind of catches up and then moves past Venus. So again, it's just before Gemini season. We're moving into a softer energy after feeling a lot of heavy, in your face, fast moving into like in your mind, in your body, everywhere, like all of this action orientation. We're taking a step back and slowing down just before we get into Gemini season, where the sun will again want to move fast and want to be quick witted and intellectual, but our actions and our emotions and the way that we want to sit and feel things out, that's going to slow down. So I think it'll give us kind of a good balance, even though it may also integrate or incorporate a sense of like a desire for stimulation and a boredom. So that's something to be mindful of throughout all of Gemini season is when you're feeling bored, don't lean into the destruction aspect that both Uranus and Gemini can bring about. Don't lean so heavily into that like Loki energy where sometimes he just did things because he was bored. He cut off all of the beautiful blonde hair just because he kind of didn't know what to do with himself that night and decided he wanted to try something different. And it ended up working out for the gods in the long run. That's how we got Mjolnir. That's how the gods ended up being protected, among other things. But ultimately, even though most of the time it does work out in your favor, just be very mindful of your tendency to do things just out of sheer boredom. Again, all throughout Gemini season, because half of our actions will be slowed down, but our minds will be going at a faster pace. So just be mindful of that. And then again, on the 20th, we will have the sun ingress into Gemini at 8:37 p.m. Eastern time. And then about 2 hours after that, we'll have the moon move into Leo at 10:48 p.m. So we start the transit with the Cancer moon for just a couple hours, and then it ushers us directly into that Leo moon. So we're feeling very anchored in our emotions, but then in that anchoredness, after the sun moves into Gemini and then the moon follows shortly thereafter, it's almost like this spark of inspiration. So maybe on that first day, especially because Vesta and Neptune will also conjoin each other at 3 degrees, on the 20th, that would be a great day, the night of the 20th specifically, to create something. To create something. If you feel like you may have been more in your feelings recently or more in your body and like trying to move through things that you didn't even know you still needed to move through, create something that night, the night of the 20th, because there is going to be very positive and prominent energy that will help you express yourself and your inner mechanisms more readily and efficiently. Again, especially after the sun moves into Gemini, because Gemini is also a sign of vast creativity. Gemini is the third sign, and number 3 in numerology is all about creation. So that can be an energy that can really, really help you tap into the things that you cannot work out mentally, but you can somatically, because again, it's about the Gemini season is about finding the balance between the two. And then that energy of creation is going to carry over into the 21st when we will have the sun directly on top of Uranus at 1 degree Gemini. Vesta still conjoining Neptune at 3 degrees Aries, and then it'll square Venus. This is only for a specific time, but it happened to be when I was checking, like the time I was checking on that transit for that day. It will square Venus at exactly 3 degrees and 33 minutes in Cancer. So again, it's that energy of creation, that spontaneity, that following the inspiration, following that nudge. If you're sitting just bored somewhere, or like you're out at your nephew's baseball game and all of a sudden you just want to doodle, take out a napkin and just doodle. Allow yourself to be tapped into that energy that's not so stringent and strict about the ways it expresses itself, and just allow the expression to flow when and where it wants to, however you can, however you have that outlet. Or even if you don't have a pen or a napkin, just get up and dance, get up and move your body body, let the creative energy flow. That's going to be a big theme this season, again, to find that balance between the mental stimulation and the more embodied energy that we're moving with Mars and Taurus. And then to go on with that the next day, Mercury moves very fast. So already on the 22nd, Mercury is going to be at 11 degrees Gemini, and it will exactly sextile Saturn at 11 degrees Aries. And of course, all the while, we'll still have the Sun conjoining Uranus for about half the day there. We'll have Venus trining the North Node at 4 degrees Cancer and Pisces. Vesta will still be conjoining Neptune at 3 degrees Aries. And then for about 3 hours midday, we'll have Jupiter at 22 degrees and 22 minutes. So that would be about from noon to like 3 p.m. at that exact 22 number. But for the whole day and for a couple days, actually, it'll be stationed exact at 22 degrees, which is considered the kill or be killed degree. But ultimately, it's just about your willpower. It's about enacting your willpower so you aren't swallowed and consumed by your lack of will. Because that's what that 22 degree is really about. It's following that will, but with all of this other energy going on, the best way you can follow the will in a way that will help it sprout in a healthy manner rather than a way that's destructive, which is it can lean towards that destruction when it's at the 22 degree. And because Jupiter is something that expands on everything it touches, whether good or bad, tap into creation that day. Venus trining the North Node is going to give you more harmonious and connective energy towards your destined path, even if you don't know what that looks like. Tapping into that sense of aesthetic beauty and harmony and creation. And again, with the Sun on top of Uranus, allowing it to be spontaneous and allowing it to come up whenever and wherever it does want to emerge. With Mercury trining Saturn, it's the intellect, it's the communication, and it's the long-term discipline that helps us connect to our North Node destined path. Anything you can do to get your mind and your act of creation, and because Gemini rules the hands, if you can do something somatically, sculpting, building, writing, drawing, playing patty cake even, something that you can do with your hands that helps you clear out the extra gunk and baggage within so you can have a more clear and steady vision about your destined path and the discipline you need to continue to walk along that path, that's going to be very prominently felt and dealt with on the 22nd. And it'll be just before the first quarter moon in Virgo, which stations exact the next day on the 23rd at 2:57 a.m. Eastern time. So depending on where you are, if you are on the West Coast, it'll be the very, very last hours of the 22nd. It would be 11:57 p.m. for you. So make it work for your time zone, of course, but again, very late at night / early in the morning hours there. So again, this the first couple days of Gemini season, it's creation is the name of the game. Creation and not being so strict in the ways that you go about creation. Creation is infinite and it really likes that energy to flow. And when we have Uranus involved with this, when it's all of this Gemini energy, when we have the mutable energy with the first quarter moon in Virgo, which again stations exact at 2 degrees and 22 minutes, where the sun will also be at 2 degrees and 22 minutes. And of course, that's only going to be for like a very, very short amount of time when that first quarter moon stations exact, which is 7:11 a.m. Oh no, sorry, I messed up. The first quarter moon stations exact at 7:11, but the moon moves into Virgo at 2:57 in the morning. So that first quarter moon is 7:11. That's when the moon will be at 2 degrees and 22 minutes. That's when the sun will be at 2 degrees and 22 minutes. All the while, the moon will conjoin the south node, which will be at 4 degrees and 41 minutes in Virgo. It will square the sun again at 2 degrees and 22 minutes, and it will trine Mars at 3 degrees and 24 minutes in Taurus. And with this conjunction with the south node, again, because the moon is fast paced and fast moving, so it's only going to be directly conjunct to the south node for, an hour, maybe an hour and a half, but it'll still be in that realm of being connected to the south node for a couple hours here or there. And following all of the creative energy of the days leading up to that first quarter moon in Virgo, following all of that creative energy, the moon coming together with the south node is just the opportunity, again, while it's squaring the sun, is that opportunity to see the ways in which your creations maybe have evolved beyond where you've been in the past. And especially with just the day before, we will have Venus trining the north node exactly at 4 degrees. Just the day before, it's going to give you that opportunity to really look at the ways that you have evolved emotionally and internally speaking, because the south node is the energies we are evolving from in order to move towards the north node, which is our destined path. So it'll give you that time to really sit and reflect and think about where you've been. And all the while, because Venus will now be at 5 degrees Cancer, it's going to quincunx in conjunct our Pluto and Aquarius at 5 degrees Aquarius, of course. But the quincunx, the inconjunct aspect, is when they can't really see each other. And because they can't see each other, it's like they want to work together, but they don't know how. So Venus moving from this direct harmonious aspect with our North Node, with our destined path, and then going to a place where it can't see Pluto, which is the planet of destruction and transformation and death in order to usher in rebirth. I think the moon is going to give us that opportunity to really take a look at where we've been and how our creations that we have garnered in the last couple days, how they have evolved beyond what where we've been, the south node energy, our emotional energy, our internal energy. And again, seeing opposite where the north node, how far we still have to go, but seeing that process of evolution. And because Venus and Pluto can't see each other there, there's still this element of destruction. And I believe Pluto will, yeah, Pluto's also going to quincunx the south node and the moon as well, and so will Neptune. So all of this energy, where Venus will be sextiling the moon and the south node as that's all happening. So there's still this energy of like harmonious coming together of the harmonious aspects within you in order to bring about creation. But then Venus cannot see Pluto. Pluto cannot see the moon and the south node, and then Neptune is also involved with this, where Neptune cannot see the moon and the south node too. So this element of like there you're being protected and shielded almost from like this idea of illusions or delusions in the ways that you're viewing yourself. And it's not so destructive in these ways that you're viewing not only yourself but your creations and the ways that you find inner harmony within. So this is a beautiful energy that allows you to take a look at where you've been, take a look at how far you still have to go without the added pressure of like the gasoline and the flame being so close to it. So it's like you're looking at where you've been and how you've evolved beyond that, but it doesn't feel like you're losing yourself as you process and reflect on everything that you have gone through in the last however long it's been for you. But allowing your creations to show you the evolution of self without it being so destructive, without it feeling like you're burning the past you all at once. It's a softer energy, it's a more harmonious energy, and it gives me like the Six of Cups energy, where it's a reflection rooted in reminiscence, a reflection rooted in reminiscence rather than in anything that's like really harsh or shameful or embarrassing or something you feel like you have to burn down. It's more cozy, it's warmer in that sense. So something cute to move through. And then the day after that, we will move from Neptune not being able to see the moon and the south node into Neptune sextiling the sun at 3 degrees Gemini and Aries. So again, we started that Sun and Uranus conjunction first, and now a couple days later, it's the Sun trining Neptune. So the Sun coming together with Uranus is amplifying the ways that you can be more spontaneous with the ways that you not only create, but also the ways you're showing up and expressing yourself in the world. So then a couple days later, when the Sun sextiles Neptune, again at 3 degrees Gemini and Aries, which is a Gemini degree, expressive degree, creative degree, it's giving you this opportunity to look at the ways that your creations in the past have connected to your bigger dreams, your bigger aspirations, the things that you thought maybe at one point weren't necessarily realistic, but there was something in you that knew there was something there. The sun is illuminating that, but at the same time, because the day before it was Neptune being hidden from the south node and the moon, so it was almost hiding the delusions that can come about of where you've been and how you've been there. With Neptune and the sun here, not only will it brighten up and bring about more clarity to the ways in which you can move towards those dreams and those more lofty ideals, because Neptune is about your bigger dreams and aspirations in that sense, and spirituality as well. At the same time, it'll also highlights maybe the ways you've been deluded in the past about the things that you thought were possible. But that doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. Maybe you were deluded into thinking they weren't realistic and weren't worth going after. And maybe this conjunction on the 20, or sorry, the sextile on the 24th is going to show you, you know what? Maybe the delusion was a lie and maybe it is actually possible. But of course, just be mindful of the ways in which you are processing the illusions and the delusions, because Neptune is disillusionment in itself. But I think this one is more, again, more in the realm of showing you what is possible or in the past you didn't believe was possible. And all the while, we'll have Mars trining the south node and sextiling the North Node at 4 degrees Taurus, Virgo, and Pisces, respectively. So Mars, our planet of action, which is taking a little bit of a backseat, making those harmonious aspects to the South and North Node, it's just allowing you to take action in moving away from where you've been, all of those things you were reflecting on when the moon came together with the South Node, and allowing yourself to take a closer look and a brighter vision, a more harmonious vision towards the actions you can take to move towards your destined purpose. And then to go along with this evolutionary story, the very next day after Mars makes those harmonious aspects with the South and the North Node, we have the Sun making a sextile with the North Node, and then a square with the South Node at 4 degrees Gemini, Pisces, and Virgo, respectively. All the while, we'll also have the Sun sextiling Vesta at 4 degrees Gemini and Aries, and then we'll have Mercury directly opposing Lilith at 17 degrees Gemini and Sagittarius. So focusing first on that sun squaring the south node after we had the moon making that conjunction with the south node, Mars then trining the south node, and then now we have the sun or squaring the south node. It's helping you ground the understanding of where you've been, how you've been deluded about what is possible and what is quote realistic in the past. You're grounding that into reality. So whatever was uncovered regarding the delusions that Neptune and the sun brought about the day before, you're now grounding the truth of those delusions or illusions into reality. So you're seeing beyond what you may have been clouded by in the past. And at the same time, with the harmonious aspect with the North Node, you're bringing the groundedness of the truth into reality. And that grounded truth is helping you to make a clearer and more precise, helping you to look at what is possible in your destined path with a clearer and more precise outlook towards that. All the while, the sun sextiling Vesta is amplifying those energies of devotion to that destined path because Vesta is our sacred flame. We tend to the sacred flame in order to keep it lit, and that's what it's all about. It's the devotional energy that we put towards our spiritual understanding and our spiritual path, but also past. Interesting, I said past, not an accident. All the while, we'll have Mercury opposing Lilith, so it's going to bring a little bit of tension between our communication, our intellect, how we make sense of the world, and our dark divine feminine. And with Lilith kind of taking a backseat towards the end of Taurus season and not making such prominent aspects there, this is the first one she's really making that is bringing about more attention and energy her way. So it's almost like she's been taking a little nap, a little hibernation for a couple days, but when Mercury opposes her in Gemini and Sagittarius, that's her first foot through the door being like, I'm still here. We are still making our mark on the world around us. And we're going to be doing that by using our voice, using our communication, using our intellect, using the breath of life that flows through our lungs and our veins. We're using that in order to allow Lilith to express through us. But because it's opposite, it might be that the words that come out of your mouth isn't necessarily what you thought they were supposed to be. So that could be a day where you might be a little bit more spicy with your language accidentally and like a little bit more like I give no fucks about what I'm saying or who it's hurting or like anything like that. So just be mindful of your word, but otherwise I think that can be a very good aspect to allow you to realign to the dark divine mother that wants to openly express herself not only through you but through society as a whole and reawakening that within our society as well. And it's almost as if as she does that, it's kind of a sneak peek as to what we would experience the next day when the sun trines Pluto at 5 degrees Gemini and Aquarius. So the opposition between Mercury and Lilith, again, is kind of reawakening that spiciness to allow that transformation and the expression of the dark divine feminine within us and throughout us and around us, right? When the sun trines Pluto, it gives a harmonious aspect between, and of course in two air signs too, it gives that harmonious aspect, oh, itchy nose, between our personal expression, our outward expression, and the more darker, more underworld coded energies that offer that transformation and rebirth. And the word retaliation is coming to mind for some reason. So potentially retaliation for things that have caused you destruction in the past, because Pluto is also destruction. That's being illuminated. All the while, Mars is going to be at 5 degrees Taurus too, which is going to semi-sextile the Sun and square Pluto. Again, that planet of action. And even though it's in Taurus, yeah, something about retaliation there. There's going to be like a reckoning almost. This is on the 26th. a reckoning. And then at the same time, Vesta is sextile in Pluto. So we'll have the Sun, Pluto, Mars, and Vesta all at 5 degrees in their respective signs. And 5 degrees is a Leo degree, which is ruled by the Sun. So it's this energy of an expose, almost like a clearer vision of the ways maybe you've been wronged in the past, which forced you to usher yourself into the underworld and find these new aspects of yourself. And maybe you grew from that, but maybe you never actually allowed yourself to simmer in the justice work that needed to be done in response to the injustice which caused you to go into the underworld there. And this isn't going to be for everybody. I think this is just for a collective of people watching this, but allow retaliation to reign that day if you feel called to. Again, this is on the 26th of May. Allow retaliation to reign because justice work is very important, especially when you've moved through a lot of deep dark shit against your will. Like you were forced to do that. That can be a day where you are devoted to allowing yourself to, if not necessarily be the justice, to at least be open enough to allow justice to reign on your behalf. And when you do justice work, I believe baneful magic has a very prominent place and a very important role to play in terms of allowing the scales to come back into balance. You can use baneful magic. You can use justice magic and justice work in order to obtain the balance you rightfully deserve and you may have lost, especially in the realm of innocence, because when we think of Pluto and the underworld, it is that loss of innocence. So allow justice to do what it needs to do on that day and the days following too. And it's funny as we're talking about Pluto and the underworld, we'll have the moon move into Scorpio on the next day. So again, it's just this energy of amplifying, and Vesta will still be sextile Pluto at that 5 degrees Aries and Aquarius. So it's just allowing yourself to simmer in the underworld energy, that energy of destruction in order to usher in transformation. And if you need to be the destruction for somebody else that caused you destruction in the past, let it be. Let it be. Let it be. I saw somebody ask the other day if they would get cursed for doing baneful magic as retaliation, as a just means of retaliation. No, babe. No, babe. No, babe. I don't often practice baneful magic, but I know when I'm being called to do something that is considered a curse or some sort of baneful practice towards somebody else that wronged me, it's because I was meant to do it. You wouldn't feel that urge, you wouldn't feel the need for retaliation, and you wouldn't know the ways that you are being called to go forth with that retaliation unless you were meant to do it. So trust that. Again, especially if it's in the realm of justice work, trust that you know what to do and you're being called to do it because you are meant to do it. Sometimes people are put in our paths and purposely fuck us over because we are the first people along that journey that have the right resources to bring the justice to them. Are you hearing me? I hope so. But moving on from there, because, being mindful of time and we still have a long way to go here. So the moon moves into Scorpio, and then on the 27th, that's going to be the first day that the Mars and Sun are kind of moving together at 6 degrees. They will be exactly semi-sextile each other from 6 degrees to 7 degrees to 8 degrees to 9 degrees. And then I think just after that, the Sun kind of ushers ahead of Mars there. But with that harmonious energy, with the Sun and Mars together, it's just going to help us bring about a clearer understanding of the steps we need to take, while also, again, because Mars is in Taurus, also allowing us to understand the importance of patience and not rushing the process. That's going to be a good lesson to learn again from the 27th until the full moon in Sagittarius on the 31st. So that'll be there. On the 28th, we'll still have Mars and the Sun together. We'll also have Venus squaring Saturn at 11 degrees Cancer and Aries, which is going to help us bring a grounded energy towards the ways in which that we can and Venus and Saturn, they work really well together. Saturn is exalted in Libra for a reason. So when Venus squares Saturn, it some people would assume it would be more of a malefic energy, but because they work really well together and because they're two planets that do really well in the grounding aspect of bringing that energy down to earth, this is going to help you again just get a more realistic understanding, especially since the Sun and Mars are still continuing their semi-sextile parade together. It'll give you a better understanding of the ways in which you can use beauty and justice and harmony and your own personal values in order to align yourself to your long term vision. Again, with patience, as I just mentioned, with the sun and Mars together. And then on the 29th, we'll still have Venus square Saturn moving from 11 degrees to 12 degrees. And then the next day, we'll still have Venus squaring Saturn, but rather than 11 degrees, they're both going to be moving together in that square to 12 degrees. And we'll still have the sun and Mars together now at 8 degrees. And then the moon moves into Sagittarius on the 30th in the morning there. And then finally on the 31st, we will have that full moon at 9 degrees Sagittarius, again at 4:45 in the morning. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to talk more in depth about the full moon in my full moon reading, so keep a lookout for that. It'll probably be posted about a week, maybe a week and a half after this video is posted. Sometime, I would say probably around the 23rd or 24th, it should be up. So take a look there. But I did write here that the full moon, no, there are a couple aspects it'll make, but one of the most prominent ones is a direct quincunx with Mars at 9 degrees Taurus. And then at the exact time of the full moon, Mars will be directly on the horizon, so directly on the ascendant of the chart for the full moon. And I said this gives the energy of the Phoenix rising, which is right on time because we are in 2027. I guess we're a little bit early here, but in 2027, in human design, we're moving from the cross of planning into the cross of the sleeping Phoenix. And I'll talk about that again in the full moon video, I guess, because it does seem relevant here. But again, it's an energy of reclamation. It's an energy of reclamation. But moving ahead, Mercury moves so fast, I didn't even realize I took these notes. So Mercury will only be in Gemini for about 2.5 weeks because on the 1st of June, Mercury moves into Cancer at 7:56 in the morning. So then at that point, we will have Mercury and Venus and Jupiter all in Cancer together during the remainder of this Gemini season. And then on June 2nd, we will have the Sun sextiling Saturn at 12 degrees Gemini and Aries, respectively. And where Venus and Saturn together allowed us to anchor in and ground the energy of our beauty and aesthetics and our value system and a sense of justice and align that to our long term vision and the disciplines we need to take in order to anchor those long term visions into reality today, the sun is going to help bring illumination and, again, a more harmonious energy to the ways we can almost become what we are anchoring in. So while Venus helped to ground that energy of Saturn into our reality, the sun is helping us awaken and become that energy so we can actually start to, if not start, if we can continue to remain disciplined and take inspired disciplined action towards those goals, which will help us reach not only our North Node destined path, but our Saturnian path of the more reputable leaning energies that we're meant to embody in this lifetime. So moving ahead from there, on June 4th, we will have the moon move into Aquarius, and then it will conjoin Pluto at 5 degrees Aquarius at around 7:45 p.m. Eastern time. And then at the same time, we'll have the north and south node move into 2 degrees of Pisces and Virgo, respectively, where they will both make a perfect square with Uranus, which will now be at 2 degrees Gemini. And because Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, it will also have a partial rulership over the Moon Pluto conjunction that we will experience that day. And then that square with the North Node, South Node, and Uranus, that will last until the 17th. So just over 2 weeks, or just under 2 weeks for that transit to actualize. And then there are a couple more minor aspects that we will be moving through over the next couple days. But just for the sake of time, I'm just going to roll through them. We'll have Jupiter square Eris at 25 degrees Cancer and Aries, and that will last for 5 days from the 5th until the 10th. And then that's just because Jupiter expands everything it touches, and Eris is the goddess of discord. During those 5 days from the 5th until the 10th, just be mindful of the ways that you are leaning more into that aspect of discord and chaos and reaping unnecessary drama in your life or allowing unnecessary drama to reap in your life. That does not need to be there. In my Taurus new moon video, I talked about how Venus and Eris will be working together with the sun and the moon in order to allow both sides of the divine feminine, the harmonious and the disharmonious, to work together to merge the light and the dark. So if anything, take notes or make something or just write something down of what you're feeling and moving through on the day of the Taurus new moon and go back to that during that 5 day transit. So, because again, Jupiter expands everything it touches. So, just if you feel like you're ready to explode or you want to reap chaos for chaos's sake and for nothing else, even if you're just bored and you want to do it, because again, it's Gemini season, that's normal. Go back to the energies you were moving with when you found the balance between the discord and the harmony. go back to that energy and see what you can do in order to ground yourself back into reality without allowing yourself to be swept up by the chaos that is reaped from that. And then on the 6th, we'll have the moon move into Pisces. And then in the late hours of the 6th slash early hours of the 7th, it'll conjoin the North Node at 2 degrees Pisces, and it will also square Uranus at 2 degrees Gemini. But because the moon is fast paced, that'll likely only be relevant while you're sleeping and dreaming. So you might have that'll be a day of prophetic dreams, I would say. Write down your dreams the next morning on the 7th, especially like anything you remember, especially because Uranus is involved. So there could be random, spontaneous things that happen in your dreams that seem like nonsense, but then end up being some sort of key later on. So, again, on the 7th, write down anything you remember from your dreams. And then the next day, Vesta squares Mercury, which is going to amplify that connection between. It's going to help amplify and ground the connection between your devotional energy and the ways that your intellect is making sense of where you're going in the world. We have our last quarter moon on the 8th. That stations exactly 6 in the morning Eastern time. Again, at 17:38. That's not making any relevant aspects outside of the moon, so we're just going to move on from there. And then after that last quarter moon in Pisces, it gives us a bit of a reprieve following that night when the moon conjoins the North Node and squares Uranus. We have a little bit of a break there before the moon moves into Aries. And then it'll spend the next 50 hours or so transiting over Neptune, then Vesta, then Saturn, then Eris, then Chiron. All the while that is happening, Venus is going to conjoin Jupiter at 25 degrees Cancer, ruled by our Aries moon. And then on top of that, we'll have Mercury squaring Saturn at 12 degrees Cancer and Aries. And the Sun will oppose Lilith at 19 degrees Gemini and Sagittarius. And that starts at about 5 p.m. Eastern time, that Sun opposite Lilith transit. And then both of those planets, both the Sun and Lilith, will be ruled by planets which are in Cancer, our Jupiter and our Mercury. And Jupiter will conjoin Venus, all while Mercury is squaring Saturn. So, to put it lightly, there's going to be a lot of tension and inner turmoil that you'll be experiencing and moving through that day. A lot of push pull energy, but also at the same time, the tension is helping you to ground into what is actually worth holding on to. It could be a very emotionally volatile time, not only because the moon is in Aries, not only because all those energies are in Cancer, not only because the sun is opposing Lilith. As you can see, there's a lot of very different reasons as to why you'll be feeling that volatility. So similar to the ways I advise to go back to the Taurus new moon while Jupiter is making that square to Eris at 25 degrees Cancer, or what, 25 degrees Cancer and Aries respectively. The same way I advise to go back to the new moon in Taurus there, just to find ways that you can cope. Oh, and yeah, I forgot. That's still going to be a thing here, but except now that it's not just going to be Jupiter making that square to Eris, it's also going to be Venus conjoining Jupiter making that square to Eris. And this will be the first time that Venus and Eris make another direct aspect since the Taurus new moon. So there's going to be, again, a lot of volatility, a lot of turmoil, a lot of chaos, a lot of confusion, a lot of reaction rather than response on these days. So if you're feeling like people are attacking you or you're attacking people and you don't know what's going on and everything's confusing and everything is turmoil and you're just feeling volatile, just take a step back. The 9th will be a good day to just mind your fucking business, keep to yourself, and just allow yourself to respond to the things that are coming up through creation again, because we're still in Gemini season. So creation will be your medicine as you move through this. But again, after all of the storm passes and the dust settles from this, you're going to have a clearer understanding of what is meant to be grounded and carried with you moving forward and what can be let go of, especially emotionally speaking. But because the energy is so volatile, just mind your fucking business. Go walk in a field barefoot, lay down in the grass, look up at the sun, keep to yourself that day if at all possible. And again, just create and write and journal and dance and move and scream and cry and thrash and do what you need to do to release the emotions and the volatility that may be coming up that day. Creation will be your best friend and your medicine that day. Tap into it. And then on the 10th, we'll still have the Sun opposing Lilith at 19 degrees Gemini and Sagittarius, but we'll also have Mercury squaring Saturn at 13 degrees Cancer and Aries. So I think this Mercury Saturn aspect is going to help you, again, bring a groundedness to everything that you're recognizing you can let go of and you don't need to continue to hold on to and hoard to just for reminiscence sake. You're seeing everything you're ready to let go of emotionally speaking. And then Mercury and Saturn will help to almost like come in to clear the debris and make the space in your mind and in your intellect and in your understanding so you know exactly again what you can let go of but what is worth holding on to, which will help you move towards the more Saturnian qualities that you want to move towards in your discipline, in the ways that you're moving towards your future goals, your orientation, all of that. And then on the 11th, it's almost going to be like that final wave of emotional turmoil as the moon in Aries will conjoin Eris at 25 degrees Aries. That'll be in the middle of the night around 1 a.m. Eastern time. So again, this might be a day where on the 12th you just wake up and record your dream. Oh no, on the 11th you'll wake up and record your dreams, because again the moon is going to conjoin Eris, the asteroid of discord and chaos, and the moon being your most deep dark emotional aspects of yourself and your value system, right? So the moon will conjoin Eris at 25 degrees Aries at 1 in the morning. The moon will then conjoin Chiron at 29 degrees, a critical degree, at around 7 in the morning, again Eastern time. So and then the moon moves into Taurus at 8:28 in the morning on the 11th. So on the 11th, wake up and write down anything you remember from your dreams, because that is very deep subconscious work. Subconscious work that's helping you connect to your inner child because it is in Aries, and it's helping you to reflect on maybe the ways in which you can allow certain values or even identifiers that you claimed for yourself, the ways you express and understand yourself to be, allow some of those things to be released. That sleep that night is going to be medicine. And again, anything you remember from your dream, write it down in the morning on the 11th. And then on the 12th, Venus will be at that 29-degree mark where it will make that square to Chiron. All the while, the moon then conjoins Mars at 18 degrees Taurus. So Venus squaring Chiron, it's almost like if the day before was that final wave, Venus squaring Chiron is helping you bring while it is tense, it's a considered a malefic aspect. It's also a grounding aspect. And Venus, along with your moon, is also in the realm of your value system. So if you write down anything from your dream, or you're recognizing what you moved through while the moon passed over Chiron the day before, Venus is helping you to anchor into, again, what you're ready to let go of and what aligns to you now versus what aligned to you then, and how you've evolved from that. It's a very grounding aspect there. And then the very next morning at 6:47 a.m. on the 13th, Venus moves into Leo, giving us a little bit more oomph, more pizzazz, more energy in terms of our personal expression and the ways that we find beauty in the world. We'll have the moon move into Gemini at 9:06 in the morning, where we'll conjoin Uranus at 2 degrees at around 1 p.m. All the while, the sun will be at 22 degrees Gemini, that kill or be killed degree. And we'll talk more about that day during my new moon in Gemini reading. Same thing with the full moon in Sagittarius reading. We'll talk about the 13th and the 14th during that new moon in Gemini reading, just again for the sake of time. But we are almost at the end. We are in our last 5 days of Gemini season. I told you at the beginning, it's a whirlwind. It's a whirlwind of a season. Let me tell you, folks. So on the 15th, the moon moves it back into Cancer at 8:14 in the morning. We'll have Vesta conjoining Saturn now. We started this Gemini season with Vesta conjoining Neptune, our dreams, our hopes, our visions, also disillusionment. And now it's conjoining Saturn at the very end of Gemini season. So we started the season with a very wistful and hopeful and dreamy energy. And when Vesta conjoins Saturn, it's taking the devotion that we had to our dreams and allowing us to not only be devotional, but disciplined in our devotion to those dreams. So it's almost like a full circle moment coming at the end of Gemini season there. And then that conjunction with Vesta and Saturn will last until the 18th. We'll also, on the same day, on the 15th, have Venus sextiling Uranus at 2 degrees Leo and Gemini, where we'll also make direct aspects to the North Node and the South Node, which will still be at 2 degrees Pisces and Virgo. So, with the energy of Vesta and Saturn together, and Venus and Uranus, and the North and the South Node together, this is a very prominent, it can work well for you in terms of future planning, and figuring out the ways in which what you need to do in order to make your future a reality. Not necessarily a reality today, but just the steps you need to take. That'll be a good day for like the building blocks of it. But because Uranus is also involved with this, it's not necessarily a day for disciplined structure, even though we do have Vesta and Saturn together. Vesta and Saturn is giving me the energy of the vision You can see it, you know what you have to begin implementing, but because Uranus is involved with this harmonious aspect with Venus, it's not necessarily the day that you're sitting down and making the 5 year plan down to the date, right? You're seeing the vision and you're promising to stay devoted and disciplined in your pursuit of the vision, but Uranus is saying leave space for spontaneity in your trajectory, in your path of walking towards that vision. So just on the 15th, trust in the ideals that come up. Trust in what you're seeing is possible because it is. Because it is. But again, don't force yourself into over planning for it because Uranus needs the space to allow you to move and groove as you walk down that path, as you walk down the aisle to become married to whatever it is that your long-term visions are, your long-term goals are. And on the 16th, we'll still have Vesta conjoining Saturn. All the while, the sun is going to make a harmonious aspect, a sextile to Eris. So that's going to be that combination now of Vesta and Saturn with the sun and Eris. It's going to amplify and illuminate what needs to still be destroyed, where you can allow chaos to reign in order to align to your future goals and stay disciplined to your future goals. But you can only stay disciplined and devoted to your goals if you know what you need to let go of. So it's this theme since pretty much since just before the new moon. It's this theme. I think it was the ninth that we talked about it. Yeah, it's the theme since the ninth. It's interesting because the beginning of Gemini season is there's a focus on creation. There's a focus on expressing your emotions through creation. And then it's almost this like this journey of expressing your emotions through creation. And after you've created this thing, when the moon comes together with the south node, you're going to be able to see the ways you've evolved from who you were and who you are now, which you are seeing through your creations, right? And then it's going to bring about this inner turmoil and a lot of like confusion because maybe part of you wants to hold on to what you already let go of, but the other part of you is ready to evolve and move on. So it's going to be this turmoil, this tumult that you're feeling inside of you, which will eventually come to a head. That's going to be when the moon moves through Aries and we're having all of that energy in Cancer and all the squares and everything like that. Everything is going to come to a head where you're finally ready to accept the fact that you are ready to let go of who you were in order to become who you've always meant to be. And then after you make that acceptance, it's just these slow processes of now that you have accepted, you can see clearly not only where you need to go, but what you need to do in order to become the person you need to be in order to get to where you're going to go. And that's what the end of Gemini season is offering here. It's that clear vision, it's that clarity, it's that settling of the dust of your old emotions, of everything you let go of. And in that settling, you're allowed to now, or you're capable of now seeing the truth of who you are now, who you are today, and how you can make it to where you're going. And you have this newfound emotional clarity and potentially emotional maturity to allow yourself to really anchor in and tap into what you need to tap into in order to make those dreams a reality. Um, and honestly, I think that's a really good place to stop. We have a couple more like aspects that we could talk about. On the 17th, we'll have the moon move into Leo. It will conjoin Venus. It'll oppose Pluto. But again, I think it's just a part of that dust finally settling. On the 19th, we'll have the moon move into Virgo. Talk about full circle moment. Okay, this will be the last thing we talk about. The 19th, the moon will move into Virgo, where again it will conjoin the south node at about 12:30 to 1 p.m. Eastern time. So as I just said, it's going to be almost that full circle moment of coming back to see not only where you've evolved from who you've been after you've created, right? But this is the opportunity to see how you've evolved from the start of Gemini season. From the first moment when you decided to take a look at your creations and see how they differ from the person you were up until this point of the creation now. So again, it's this beautiful full circle moment. And then on that same day, we're going to have Chiron move into Taurus. So it's this full circle moment of your own personal evolution, especially internally and emotionally speaking, and your value system. But then we're also having Chiron finish out a long chapter. And Chiron's been in Aries since 2018. Interesting that Uranus had been in Taurus since 2018 as well. Chiron's been in Aries since 2018. And at the on the last day of Gemini season, at the same time that the moon is conjoining the south node for the second time during Gemini season, Chiron is moving on. Chiron is going into a new sign. And I know Chiron does station retrograde later this year. It might ingress back into Taurus, or sorry, back into Aries at a certain point. But if anything, it's just going to be a quick thing to again reevaluate where you've been, see how you've grown, see how you've come into fruition and stepped into this new version of yourself in order to align to where you're going. So the beginning of Gemini season is all about creation, and then each step we take after that, it's a reflection on your own internal evolution. It's a revelation of the ways that you have evolutionized yourself. And again, it's just this ushering in of a new beginning. But we're also like we've already been in the new beginning. So it's like it's this continuous process of allowing the ball to keep rolling. And with Uranus being in Gemini for the first Gemini season, for the first of about 8 Gemini seasons, expect the unexpected. Not only in your environment, but the ways in which that you can grow and prosper and evolve and continue to evolve. What a gift that is. Anyway, thank you guys for being here. I know this one was a little bit more wordy, in true Gemini fashion, and I have 3 Gemini placements, so obviously, obviously I love this energy, but when I get too engulfed in this energy, I can get carried away. So if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thanks for being here as always, and thank yourself for being here. Um, yeah, heed the advice if you feel called, or if you just like to listen to me yap. I appreciate you either way. But send you guys love. Happy Gemini season. Inward and onward, people, and onward and upward. Heck yeah. All right, love y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.